There's a new me coming out, and I just have to live, and I wanna give. I'm completely positive. I think this time around I am gonna do it like you never knew it. Oh, I'll make it through. The time has come for me to break out of the shell. I have to shout that I am coming out. I'm coming out. I want the world to know.
Welcome to the show, Never Too Late Ever, where we focus on making the next chapter of your life the very best chapter ever. I am so excited to be with you today. My name is Lorraine Hoving, and I am happy that you are here because this day could change your life. Open your heart, open your ears, and listen. You may find a gem, a treasure. My hope is you will find something that you can apply to your life today. Today, I am delighted to introduce you to Cindy Miller. Hi, Cindy. How are you?
Hello, Lorraine. I'm doing very well. How are you?
Fabulous, and I'm so excited to have you. So let me tell you a little bit about Cindy, and then we'll just dig right in there. Today's guest, as I said, is Cindy Miller, a professional golfer and certified behavior professional who inspires and challenges people to unlock their potential. I love it. Throughout Cindy's career, she has been told, "You aren't good enough." How many of us have heard that? You aren't good enough. That is what has motivated her to reach the highest levels of both playing and teaching in the world. She is a renowned global speaker and consultant. Cindy is here today to share her journey and the IT box. I love this. The box symbolizes your potential. To me, it sounds like you're going to find some treasures here. Cindy will share her 3-step process that will teach you how to own your IT. And welcome to the show, Cindy. So glad you are here.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Now, I have one quick question. I want to know what wakes you up on fire every single morning. What is it that gets you out of bed and you're just going, I'm going for it today?
You know what? I think it's my assignment in life to always be striving and pursuing my personal potential. And I don't want to die and look at God's face and have him say to me, "Why didn't you do what I wanted you to do?" And I can't look at his face and say, "You know what? Because I was afraid. I didn't know what to do." So it's my mission. I don't want to die and have him say, "Why didn't you do what I wanted you to do?" I want him to say, "Well done, my good and faithful servant." So that's
wonderful.
Yeah.
So that's what wakes you up in the morning. Now, in your introduction, you said that you were told you are not good enough. And many of us are told that. And so many people, when they are told they're not good enough, they believe it. Now, you have turned the "you are not good enough," and that has motivated you to reach your highest levels of both playing. Give us an example of when you were told you were not good enough, and then we'll get into the IT box. But I want to know when you were told that and what you did to overcome that, because many people in our audience have been told that from the day they were born. They were not pretty enough, they weren't slim enough, they're not good enough, you're not smart enough. What did you use to overcome those feelings?
You know, I didn't really like the game of golf. My parents played golf and I was dragged to the course like every weekend. And in 8th grade, I got fat. And the cute boys at the pool started to call me 10-ton Tessie.
Oh, no. 10-ton. Oh.
10-ton Tessie. So I quickly found an aversion to swimming, and I didn't have any other choice but to go play golf because I was too young to drive. And I had to be there with my parents. They didn't have a babysitter, so the only other option was to learn to play golf. And when I learned to play golf, I got some lessons from the head pro, and I really was pretty good at it. And my mom and her friends took me to an LPGA tour event when I was 17. And when I went to this tour event, I saw the beautiful clothes they had on, the brand new shoes, the big golf bag with their name
Yeah.
on it. And my eyes got wide open and I was like, oh my gosh, this is what I want to do. I'm going to be a professional golfer and play on the LPGA tour.
Wow.
And
Wow.
I came home with my big dream in my heart. And my dad said, well, you're not really good enough. How are you going to do this? And I said, well, I'm going to have to play golf in college. And he said, well, you're already signed up to go to Fredonia State University. I was going to graduate from high school a year early because I didn't like high school. And I was getting out that summer. And he said, well, you've already applied. You're going to Fredonia. And I said, well, I'm not going to stay there. So this was a long time ago and there was no internet. So what I did was I wrote letters to the Golf Digest magazine.
Yeah, imagine that, writing a letter.
Right. And the Ben Hogan Company, because I played their golf club, so I figured they would care about me. And to be honest with you, they wrote back to me.
That's amazing.
And they said, so it was a blessing that I was going to go to Fredonia State for a year because I needed that time to plan where my next step was. And they wrote back and they said, here's the list of schools that have golf teams that have women's golf teams, right? So I wrote to the University of Miami because I'm from Buffalo and that sounded like it was a great idea to go to Miami from Buffalo. And they wrote back and they said, well, you're not good enough to be on the team, but you're welcome to be a walk-on, which means you come down and try to play on the team and you take a big risk. Well, I did that. And I never visited the school. My parents didn't even take me to college. We had a family friend who was a captain for Eastern Airlines who lived in Coral Gables, Florida, which is where the University of Miami is headquartered. And that he said, well, I've got to fly down back on a flight. So I flew down with his family with my suitcases and my golf bag, and they dumped me off at my dorm room.
Wow.
So I sat on my bed and I cried. And then I called a friend that I had met over the summer who was also going to play golf on the team, but she was recruited, and then I practiced. And 4 years later, I graduated the #1 player on the golf team.
Amazing.
We won back-to-back national championships, and I was voted team captain and All-American my senior year.
Well, what was it that gave you that desire to, when people were telling you you're not enough, what was it? That just a drive inside of you? Well, I'll show you.
You know, I think it's partly that, but I think it was the dream was such a big lure to me. And golf is a game where I call them the committee of they. You know, they're always the naysayers, and the committee will say, well, you can't do that. You know, you're looking up, you're bending your arm, you're doing that. They tell you everything you're doing wrong. It's like crabs in a pot. When one crab tries to grab out and crawl out of the pot, the other crabs pull them down and suck them back in. So the crabs in the pot were trying to suck me back in, and I was like, get off me. I am not going there. Yeah. So I think that's what it is.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. So you've called this first show Unlocking Your Potential. So is your potential in the IT box? And tell us about what the IT box is.
Well, since I played on the University of Miami golf team, I tried to qualify for the LPGA Tour on my first attempt. I didn't make it. I wasn't good enough. My second attempt, I did qualify, only to lose my card after 3 seasons. So of the best players in the world, I was one of the worst. And I got married, and I went from LPGA Tour player to PGA Tour wife, because my husband played on the PGA Tour for 15 years and played in the Masters 5 times.
Okay.
So there was all that time of me thinking to myself, you know, maybe that dream was just a nightmare that was going to haunt me for the rest of my life. And you know, why did I have that big dream? And I accomplished it, but you know, I really wasn't that good.
Yeah.
And it was kind of a nightmare. And I got mad at the game of golf. Of course, it's golf's fault. It's not Cindy's fault, right? And like, again, it's a long story, but my husband he was an alcoholic. He quit playing after he was on the tour for 15 years. He tried to commit suicide. He finally stopped drinking in 1996. And in 2000, I had started a shirt business. And I was sitting in I call it the sweatshop. and I was having a pity party, as we can sometimes do. And I was reading the Monday morning paper and looking at all the scores from the tour events from that past weekend to see who shot what and how much money they made, the results. And I saw that there was a Legends Tour for former LPGA Tour players.
Wow. Uh-huh.
And I was like, whoa, what's that? So I looked at the list, being nosy, to see what everybody shot and how much money they made. And there's a Hall of Famer that's a year or two younger than me named Nancy Lopez.
Mm-hmm.
And Nancy Lopez had played in this tournament, and I looked across to see what she shot, and she had shot 85 one day, and she made $3,000 for doing so. So 85 when you're a golf pro is not good. So I immediately thought to myself,
you know what? I'm not a golfer, but I'm glad you told me that.
Yeah, 85 is really bad. And so I thought to myself,
but she still made 3,000. Yeah.
Right. So if she can make $3,000, I want to make $3,000, and that's easier than sitting here hand sewing shirts all day and giving golf lessons all night, right?
Right.
So it was at that point that I decided that I was going to stop trying to fix my husband, and I was going to get off the nail and stop whining and do something about myself.
Right.
So that's kind of the instigator of the It Box and unlocking my potential. I then applied to be on a TV show called The Big Break. And The Big Break was a reality show that was on the Golf Channel, and it basically was Survivor of Golf. And there were 10 women, and it was a 12-week series, and each week someone was either kicked off or you got to stay on the show.
Like Survivor. Yeah.
Correct. It was Survivor of Golf. And it's funny because I knew I needed to do this show to prove that I could play in a tournament and not choke my guts out. So in fact, as I got the email for the show, I was thinking, should I do this? And the little voice in my head said, well, excuse me, but we both know that if you were tied for the lead at a Legends Tour event and had to hit a shot over water on the 18th hole with thousands of people watching you, you would puke. And then I said to myself, you're absolutely right. I need to learn to do this show so I can learn how not to choke. So I applied for the show, and I got chosen out of thousands of people, and I was the oldest person on the show. I was 48 years old at the time.
I love it.
Yeah, and again, so it's never too late, right?
Right, never too late, ever.
Ever. So I ended up coming third in the show, and the next Legends Tour was in Des Moines, Iowa. And the tour, for someone like me who wasn't good enough, of the best in the world, I was the worst. I always had to qualify. So, in fact, I earned the name the qualifying queen. And because I did so well on this show, everybody knew who Mama Miller was, the old lady that was on the show. So now I'm like a television golf celebrity, right? And so I didn't need to qualify. I got an exemption to play in the tournament.
Wow.
Which was great. And I played in the first round. You always get paired by how well you do, and the worst players tee off first. So, of course, I was teeing off first with my buddy, Kitty Robine, and so she shot 68 the first round, which is really good, and I shot 71, which is also good. It's under par. Yeah. And that night we had a meeting with all the tour players, and so all these Hall of Famers are sitting there, and all these superstars, and I, the ones I looked up to that were my heroes. And I raised my hand and I said, we don't have a money list that makes you exempt like every other tour. Are we ever going to do that if you finish so much on the money list, you don't have to qualify? And this girl stood up and she said, are you kidding? Our sponsors want famous people to play. And I just was like, oh, okay. And another woman stood up and said, what are you talking about? She's more famous than you are. She finished great on that TV show. Everybody knows who she is now. And so it's funny because you need to know what motivates you. And I went home that night and I was so mad that I didn't think about protecting. All I thought about was pursuing. And I knew that if I finished in the top 10 of the tournament the next day, that I would be exempt for the